read out our code requirement. Well, first I'll read out our mission. Metro Arts' mission is to drive an equitable and vibrant community through the arts. Pursuant to the provisions of 2.68030 of Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Arts Commission may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the Commission. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. With that, I will call the meeting to order and read our land acknowledgement. Metro Arts stands and holds space on the unceded and sovereign lands of the Cherokee East, Yuchi, and Sewanee peoples who have stewarded it for generations. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes and hope for a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. We acknowledge we are all standing on ancestral lands, and we honor the thousands of enslaved African peoples whose lives were physically and spiritually stolen. We pay respect to elders past and present. Metro Arts invites you to join in our commitment to knowing our Native communities in more meaningful ways in alignment with our restorative arts practice. Thank you. If you would like more resources on our land acknowledgement, you can see them on the screen in the presentation. Thank you, Chuck. Next, we'll move on to our public comment section. So I'll ask Claudia if we have any public comments. Okay, thank you. We do not have any public comments today. So I will move on to action item C. This is the approval of the meeting minutes. Today we're reviewing 3 sets of meeting minutes, and I believe we'll need to take them on separately as 3 separate items. So I guess we can start with the January 16th meeting minutes. Commissioners, if you could review, if you have not already, and if there are any changes, please let me know.
I would move that we accept the minutes from January 16th.
All right, the motion has been made by Commissioner Lefowitz. Do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Knight. All those in favor of approving the January 16th meeting? Oh, sorry, my apologies. Is there any discussion on the item? Awesome. All those Aye. All those opposed? Awesome. We will move on to the March 3rd meeting minutes.
I move we approve the minutes from March 3rd.
Thank you, Commissioner Knight. A second by Commissioner Wade. Thank you. Is there any discussion on the approval of the March 3rd meeting minutes? Awesome. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes, and we will move on to the April 30th meeting minutes.
I move we approve the April 30th meeting minutes.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Yu. Is there any discussion around the April 30th meeting minutes? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes, and we will move on to our artist spotlight. I will invite Chuck up to the stand to introduce our artist for the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harden. Amber Lely is an artist driven by curiosity and a desire to push the boundaries of her craft, and she's also to my left. From monumental sculptures to intricate bold prints, her work explores the endless possibilities of materials and ideas. Each piece invites viewers to experience something new, whether it's the harmony of contrasting materials or a story told through innovative design. A Tennessee native with a BFA in studio art from Middle Tennessee State. Amber's artistic journey has led her to create public art installations and immersive environments for institutions and festivals. Her work has been recognized by the National Sculpture Society. It's one of her pieces you all know very well with Metro Arts in the Donaldson Public Library, Celestial Falls, is a two-story suspended sculpture commissioned by the city of Nashville, blending technical mastery with imaginative vision. She's not sculpting. Amber is continually looking for new ways to address complex challenges, striving to leave a positive, lasting impact, whether through art, community engagement, or creative problem solving. She aims to use her work to from her to the stand right now. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's great to meet you. And thanks for having me. Chuck said, my name is Amber. I'm a local artist. I went to Mount Juliet went to college at MTSU Murfreesboro and have been living and working in the Nashville area ever since. So I am an interdisciplinary artist that choose the material and medium best fit for the concept or idea of the work that I'm making. And I primarily focus on sculpture, printmaking, and marquetry, which is a veneer woodworking medium. And in addition to my three focuses of media, I also have three focuses of research and concepts that tend to tie into all of the work that I make. So the first one is theoretical common ground. And that means that I tend to create ideas and focus on research that we all have in common. So even though we all have different backgrounds, come from different places, very different opinions, are shared human experiences that we all have and that we can all relate to, and that we all can unify, I think, I hope, through my work, and recognize that we have more in common than we tend to believe that we do. There we go. I also do work around social inclusion. So that's both about interpersonal relationships, but also community relationships as a whole and societal relationships. And I also create work about historical accountability. So I believe that it's important to understand where we've been, to know where we're going. It's important to put context around our current movements and experiences today, historically, both through art and through other matters. And then I also do public art, as you guys know. So it's the Celestial Falls hanging in the Donaldson Public Library. It is a two-story sculpture designed from three different vantage points. So on the first floor, you're looking up at the waterway. On the second floor, you're eye level with all of the flora and fauna. And from the exterior, especially at night and in the winter months, you're able to see the sculpture hanging in its entirety. Thank you guys for the opportunity to create that work for the community. I was really honored to receive the commission, and I'm also really proud to say that 98% of the labor force was all local and specific to Davidson County, and 86% of all of the suppliers and vendors was also Davidson County specific. So it was really important for me to reinvest that back into the local community of creatives and fabricators that we have here in the area. Because everyone locally was so involved and impacted by the project, we also had received an additional over 175,000 in-kind donations towards this project from the community, in addition to everything that you guys provided. So aside from being a fine artist and a public artist, I also work as a fabricator. So aside from fabricating my own stuff, I fabricate artwork for other artists, other sculptors, and other architects. So this is a piece that myself and Meredith Edmondson created for two architects, Brian Abner and JP Jackson. This was a piece titled Blind Spot. It's interactive in the day with the mirror, and then at night with the lights. The lights change and interactive music. And the audience is able to spin the mirrors and take a look at the pieces. And they displayed this last year at the Blink event in Cincinnati, Ohio. And then this is me hanging on one of our in-progress suspended figures over at the studio of Alan LaQuire. So I work as Alan LaQuire's studio manager. He's been my mentor on and off over the past decade. We've worked together collaboratively, and we are currently making over 24 life-size or larger than life-size monumental figures that are going to be unveiled on June 24th at the Parthenon. It's an exhibition titled Monumental Figures, and he is the first one who has been given access to the entire building. So it won't just be in the gallery below, it'll also be on the second floor, suspended around Athena, and also in the exterior. So it's a major exhibition. We've been working for the past year towards it, and we're in crunch time now. So I hope that you guys come out. It'll be between June 12th all the way through September. And so my latest work that I made after Celestial Falls was a solo show titled Rest in Pieces. I was invited by the gallery director, Elizabeth Cave of LaQuire Gallery, to present a solo exhibition at the end of November of last year. She wanted something that we can use to focus Celestial Falls with more sort of like a little bit of a Celestial Falls that you could take home. But because of the time that she was asking me, there were two major things going on kind of in my world at the time. One of that was the election. The election just happened in November of 2024. And also I had experienced a great loss in my own personal life. And so all of these things were merging and colliding at the same time. And so what came out of that was this show titled Rest in Pieces. I chose to use the concept of florography, which is in the Victorian era, people weren't allowed to share their emotions or express their ideas, but everyone wore flowers, and it was kind of their sneaky way to sort of tell each other what they were feeling and what they were going through, and so everyone knew what these flowers represented that the people were wearing. And so, you know, tying into Celestial Falls with the flora, that was my tie-in, and I decided to do flowers that represent grief and new beginnings, and that also represented different attributes that I believe that we should all really hold on to and carry, especially kind of in this new season as we move forward. I'll also mention that we partnered with the Hispanic refugee, or not the Hispanic, but the Immigrant Refugee Coalition here in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Hispanic, and so everything that's been going on has been very personal to my family and my community. I wanted to find a way to give back, and like many of us, I think it was really helpless. I'm not sure what to do, but artwork is what I know to do. So we partnered with the coalition, and myself and the gallery were both able to donate funds to help with the reformation of laws here in Tennessee for my community. So these are some of the flowers that we made, or that I made. It was the rain flower, which symbolizes rebirth and great expectations. You also have the daffodil, which is unrequited love, respect, and self-love, and the Adonis flower, which is painful recollection and sorrowful remembrances. I also created the Crown Imperial, which is power and majesty, or the power of birth, pride of birth, and the Bleeding Heart flower, which is rejected love or passionate love. And there's a detail of the concrete base there, which is the medium for most all of the bases of these sculptures, with a permanent drop or drip of the flower. This is also the apple blossom. It symbolizes preference, things to come, and good fortune. This was a piece that I had while making Celestial Falls. So in the process of creating those flowers that were all handcrafted in the studio, there were many different stages of those flowers that were really beautiful. And I kind of wanted to just be like, stop right here. Like, let's just call this done. But it wasn't what the sculpture called for in the end. And so I was able to go back and revisit sort of these different phases of the process, and these different phases of materials that I wanted to. And so apple blossom is one that explores that with the exposed concrete and habitat. So the darker gray portion where you can kind of see the metal lap is exactly what's underneath all of those flowers that you see suspended in Celestial Falls. I also made a wall called a tropical wall. Love the tropics. I feel like I'm ready to go to an island. So this one represents exotic destinations, happiness, and love. And I also created a wilted marriage bouquet. So it has both wilted flowers and new blooms. So it's a little hopeful for the future. And the flowers inside of it are rose, which is true love, ivy for fidelity, myrtle for hope and love and marriage, and dahlia for commitment and eternal love. We also have these fern colonnades, which are all standing. I think the tallest one is at 8 feet. We have 8 feet, 7 feet, and 6 feet for the fern colonnades. And this was another one that came from inspiration of Celestial Falls when we were creating and working on the ferns. I had them on these tall bases in the studio as we were working on them. And so I really wanted to go back and visit that idea of having this extended risen fern. And then this is another piece titled I Respect Thy Tears. So this one is very much an in memoriam type of work, a monumental type work, and it is a relief of a bunch of different flowers. So you have the forget-me-nots, which are true love, remembrance, and don't forget me, bayberry for I respect thy tears, and the spindle tree, which is your image is engraved on my heart. And it is all hung on a steel architectural framework that was also fabricated by myself and my team. There we go. And we also have the persimmon tree. So the persimmon was one of the trees that is in Celestial Falls. And so I wanted to revisit that kind of in a new way. And so I made the persimmon tree leaf and had these 2D wall hanging steel plates that hung on the wall, and then the leaf is protruding out. So it's kind of a combination of a 2D, 3D sculpture. And that's my work. So thank you guys very much for your time. I don't know if you do Q&A or we just say thank you very much. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Amber, for sharing that. It's really beautiful. I'm excited about the show at the Parthenon as well. Yeah, do we have any questions? Does anyone else want to say anything?
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Amber. That was really great. I love your work at Donaldson as well. I love that whole library. So we're very happy to have your piece in our collection. Now we will move on to our action items and discussion section. I know that Campbell is not present today, so I think Ashley will be speaking on her behalf to talk about executive committee updates. So I will hand it over to our interim executive director, Ashley Batchelder.
Great. Thank you so much. Good to see everyone. I'll just say this meeting, we don't have any action items today, and so this is informational committee updates mostly today. Just a brief update for executive committee. We did not meet in May for a number of reasons, things that were going on, focus on preparing for the audit due out that we had in the budget, and a lot of my time that was spent onboarding with our new finance administrator. So we did not have the May meeting. We will have our next executive committee meeting on June the 11th. But what you have in your packet that I just wanted to bring attention to is the standing meeting schedule. So all of our committees that are on there, and we are still looking to do a retreat in July. That will be a weekday, and I'm looking to have a few date options out to you all by the end of this month. So it will be scheduled at least a month out, but likely, 6 weeks or further out. And so we'll be getting that information. And then I'll just remind folks that Shannon Hall from Metro HR will be visiting us at our next meeting next month to talk about the process and the timeline for the executive director search. And so that's the brief update for executive committee, and we will have our next meeting on June the 11th.
Thank you, Ashley, for that update. If there are no questions or discussion on what Ashley has presented, we'll move on to Public Art Committee updates. Also, Campbell chairs that committee, so we have the Attilio Murga here to present, or at least to give us an update on the Public Art Committee meeting.
Is it not going? It's on? Oh, which is not on? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, I'm going to start over. No, I'm not going to give an overview about our PAC. Sorry, Commissioner. I'm going to be presenting and talking about our call that we just recently released, 2 weeks ago. If you hopefully looked in your inboxes, I've sent you all personally one. Brittany, unfortunately, I have not sent you one because I did not have your email. So put that on the record. But yes, it's been exciting so far that we have received a lot of good candidates have applied. It's going to be closing on June 23rd. And then hopefully in the next 2 weeks or week, I will be releasing a call for community members to serve on our citizen selection panel that will coincide with this. So then these individuals will be the ones selecting the artist for this call to artists. This call to artists, if you remember, it's an open call, which would be considered a national call to artist. Anybody eligible within the United States will be able to apply. And key highlights, it's $400,000 for a wall sculpture for the new Nashville Youth Campus for Empowerment. And hopefully within a month from today, I will be bringing you our second call for this campus, which would be the Empowerment Collection, which would be for hung artwork on canvas, and that will be roughly between 15 and 20 artists, but I don't want to give too much until I have all the details, and then I'll come back and bring that to you. Does anybody have any questions? Great. I have a request. Since I've sent it all to you, please, forward it to as many people as possible through all your channels, your networks. It'd be really, really appreciated. So, thank you.
Thank you, Attilio. Very much looking forward to that project finally getting underway and finished. So I'm excited about that entire Empowerment Center. So thank you for that. Moving on, we'll have Ashley and Commissioner Lefowitz will talk about the Grants Funding Committee and then give us some updates.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So the Grants Committee did meet Monday of this week, and I'm going to ask Interim Director Batchelder to share some updates, both on FY25 and FY26. But just to have on the record and per the email that she sent out earlier, originally, the original timeline that we had as a Grants Committee, we thought we might be ready to present recommendations for you to vote on today. We decided to push that back a month. And the timeline still allows us with that pushback to stay on track to get money out by the end of the year, which is our real, that's what we want to do as soon as possible. But for the reasons shared in the email to you, just thinking about giving us a bit more time to talk about some of these policy changes and to make sure that we have things in terms of the guidelines and the requirements really straight to bring to you next week. So if you want to take a look at the grants meeting that we on Monday, and then I hope that we'll have some time today to kind of discuss this. And so again, we won't be voting on anything today, but next month is when we anticipate bringing these things to you. So would you like to go through and just share the updates? We have the timeline for 26 as well in front of you.
Yeah, and I'll just add a clarifying comment there. It was the email that Commissioner Lefkowitz referenced only went to the grant committee members. So if you didn't get that, you're not missing anything. But it was just essentially informing committee members in advance of the committee meeting that we had on this past Monday that we would be adjusting the timeline as explained and as I'll go through here. And so just a couple quick updates on FY25, so the cycle that we are in right now. As you know, we have the 165 grantees. 159 of those grants have been paid out, and so the 6 remaining ones are shown here. 2 of them are still with the grantee, so we haven't received the information that we need to process that contract, to process the payment. 2 we're still processing, which might be resolved by now. These numbers were from a couple days ago, and then 2 are without a contract still. So we have 6 that we're just troubleshooting the last few things, but 159 of the 165 have been paid. If you go to the next slide, it just shows what those numbers are. And so we've paid out $3,191,000 of our total $3.2 million. And so that is what it looks like by the numbers. And if you go to the next slide, before I go into FY26, any questions or anything that commissioners have heard from current grantees about questions or things that you need information on? That's all I have to share about the current cycle that we are in right now. But if anyone has questions about current cycle before I talk about next cycle.
Just one related to the one that we haven't executed yet. Is there a deadline by which that has to happen? Do they have an unlimited amount of time? And then remind me what happens to the dollars if that contract isn't executed, please.
Yeah, so it's the fiscal year, and legal, correct me if I'm wrong. So I can't process a payment if I don't have a signed contract. So there's 2 grantees that we have just not heard from when we've tried to receive the information that we need. And so this is fiscal year money. So if it comes and goes beyond the fiscal year, I don't think that I can do anything about that anymore. And it does take probably 2 to 3 weeks of when I receive the information that we need to go through the signature process, the invoice and the payment approval. So 2 to 3 weeks from when I receive that information to when somebody can expect to be paid out. And so we are running up on the deadline. And the contract period, again, is January 22nd through June the 30th. So that's been stated up front. And if there is funds that we do not use, it just goes back to the general fund of Metro. So we're essentially just forfeiting it back. Okay. So for FY26, so the next round of applications, like Commissioner Lefkowitz said, we had a pretty hearty discussion in our grants committee meeting on this Monday that you can review in all of your free time. I'm sure that we all have, but we went through a number of recommended policy changes or recommendations, some rather simple, some that would require a lot more discussion. And so I wanted to just briefly run through those. The things that I have shown on this slide here are some of those simple things that we know that we can do to improve our process. So we have some ways that we're improving the background check policy just based on feedback that we have heard from grantees. We are proposing to add a 3-day curing period where after technical reviews, applicants who have been flagged for a potential denial will have a 3-day period to fix that if the thing is able to be fixed. And so that's something that we've identified as a strategy in response to a lot of the challenges that we had this year. So that is providing people an opportunity to fix a technical error that could be fixed in their application and prevent it from being denied. We've talked about some ways to provide additional support for first-time applicants, things like priority office hours with more direct outreach to folks who are applying for the first time. We're adding some clarifying language about the definition of an arts organization, so that is part of our operating grants. And we're also proposing to remove the appeals process, and that would be replaced with an invitation for grantees who receive a denial to have a sit-down meeting with staff to learn why their application was denied, how it could be improved in the future to be more successful. And of course, with some of the other things that we're proposing here, we're really hoping that we are preventing denials through, for example, like the curing period. And so those are some of the proposed changes that we feel are pretty confident about, that are kind of simple process changes. And if we go to the next slide, these are proposed changes or things that we are thinking about that we know we want to continue the discussion on. And I think we have time to probably have about 15 minutes of discussion here because we would love to know what other commissioners who were not on the grant committee or have more thoughts since the grants committee discussion to hear some of that. So I'll just kind of go through very high level what each of these are. And so we are recommending, staff is recommending that the Thrive maximum request amount be $15,000 this year. We are recommending removing the public art Thrive category of the application. And so I put public art in quotes because I want to be clear to distinguish. We have a category in our Thrive application that says public art Thrive projects. This should not be confused with public art that is funded through a different funding source, that is delineated in the code in a different way, that goes through different processes than our grant funds. And this is things like murals or sculptures or architectural landscape projects, where essentially why we are recommending this is because for those types of projects, there's a level of support and process that we have not been providing through the grants program. And so what I mean by that is we don't have the program set up to really be evaluating the things that should be going into consideration if somebody's applying for a mural. And we've seen some of that come back to us with questions that we're getting about murals that we funded through the Thrive project that have come back after the fact and had some questions about like maintenance plans that weren't required on the front end, and that we're now trying to figure out like what support are we able to provide or ideally should be providing that wasn't built into the programming on the front end or the grants and the requirements and the review on the front end. And so that's what I mean by that part. There's a lot more discussion that we could have around that, but I'll just continue going through the list here. The next change that we are exploring is about the fiscal sponsor fee structure. And so right now, if you're an individual artist applying for Thrive, you need a fiscal sponsor, a nonprofit organization to serve in that role for you. Fiscal sponsors are able to charge up to 10%. They could also charge 0%. And so that's really negotiated between the applicant and the fiscal sponsor. We are exploring and having conversations with folks who are doing this right now around if something like a flat fee would be a more equitable and easier to operationalize way to do that. So that would look like if you're serving as a fiscal sponsor, you would receive X number of dollars on top of the artist budget. So that fiscal sponsor fee would not come out of the artist budget either. But if the fee were $750 for a $15,000 Thrive grant, that contract would be for $15,750. So it doesn't come out of the artist budget, and it goes to the fiscal sponsor to provide that support that and the administrative duties that come with that. The change or the tweak that we are exploring for operating grant funding formulas is better defining how much of the operating budget we want to direct to different size categories of organizations, of grantees. So what I mean by that is we know that we categorize our organizations as micro, small, medium, mid-size, and large. And this tweak we would define that we want to allocate 20% of our operating grant dollars to large organizations. I'm just using this as an example. We might want to allocate 35% to mid-size organizations. So it just allows us to direct the allocations that we want based on our goals and our objectives as an organization. And finally, what we are exploring is this criteria or eligibility of dual eligibility for Thrive and operating grants. And so this was in the last 2 years, the applications had allowed micro or small organizations to apply for both Thrive project funding as well as operating funding. And so there are different types of grants for different purposes and arguably different impacts on an organization. And this is the thing that changed mid-cycle each of the last 2 years. And so this is one of the areas that has caused confusion 2 years. And we saw this in the conversation with the appellants last month as well. And so I just wanted to talk about this up front. And I would say the reason why this was put into practice 2 years ago was an intention to support our smallest organizations with access to both funding opportunities. So that's a lot that I just went through, but these are the things that we are discussing in grants, and maybe I should have paused after each one, but is there, grants chair, is there something that you want to add?
Yeah, we can offer any clarifications because I know that was a lot. There are on the grants committee recording, we did have kind of slides that we could see as well for some of these things, especially like how it would play out with the formula funding. But I guess let's just dive in, and I would like, if you have questions or if we can provide more clarification or detail, I would very much like to hear from you to know in terms of thinking about proceeding with this. And just to be clear too, we're trying to, as a committee, kind of think about any of these policy changes really by the end of this month so that we can get it to legal, to have them review so that what we have for the grants committee right in June is kind of ready to go. So that's kind of what we're working with. This also goes for the community too, in terms of thinking about, I welcome your emails on this. Yes.
So I have several questions. I guess I'll start with what data is informing the proposed changes? Is it like grantee data, staff insights? Just curious about how the list came together,
In terms of,
the proposed changes.
yes. So, well, this is not as much about data, but just background, thinking about things that we could do that would be not too huge, right? Because we can't bite off more than we can chew. We're trying not to do that this year, right? So that we can keep things mostly the same. A lot of these policy changes, as a grants committee, we just kind of kept an ongoing list of things that we felt like, and in terms of like looking at the data, like looking at the denials, even looking at like the appeals process, looking at kind of the things that could kind of, we thought might be corrective to some of the challenges that were faced. That's not exact data, but it was kind of more our discussions. And then there were some things that we put in the pile of like, okay, these might be tweaks that we can make this time. There were other things that we decided we didn't have time to work on. For example, one of the conversations we had was around underrepresented council districts in terms of thinking about how funds might be allocated. That is data that we don't have. And is a more kind of complex discussion. So what we're doing is we're going to develop a timeline for our grants committee to work on that for the next fiscal year. Do you want to say more about specific data points too, in terms of thinking about, is there one in particular?
Well,
too, that
I
would
just
be-
didn't know if you all ever survey, grantees that have been awarded and even those that have been denied. And I was a little bit curious around, roughly speaking, like we saw the numbers on the number of grants awarded. How does that compare to like how many applications come in, how many are denied, how many are awarded? Like I'm just curious about that kind of like fundamental data that, in my thinking, would shift how you would approach some of these things.
Yeah, and I'm happy, something that I could do is also share out all the materials that the grants committee members get with the full commission as well. So I think I think in our April meeting, we reviewed the numbers for denials, for example. So for Thrive, we had, I think it was 148 denials, which is typically not that high in it was an atypical year. But some of those things were, we categorized that, right? We coded the data, this X number were based on this reason for denial, X number for, so some of those were dual eligibility. Some of them were criteria that could have perhaps been met had there been different support strategies in place. And so that's where this idea for like a 3-day curing period came from, where if fiscal sponsorship information was missing or maybe the wrong form was updated, that's something that could be fixed during that period. For operating grants, I believe it was about 20, it was either 20 or 28 denials. Some of those were just as simple as the application was submitted beyond the deadline. Some of them were because the applicant was not an arts organization. And so we have that information about the denials for this year. I think some of the proposed tweaks to the operating funding formula, one that I didn't mention here is that we're proposing to add like a transition threshold period. So because we stratify our funding formula based on budget size, for organizations that are just over the maximum budget size, they see a pretty dramatic shift or a dramatic change in their grant amount. So we're introducing a period where if you're 10% over the maximum threshold, you actually receive the midpoint of those 2 grant awards. So that's based on sort of the anomaly data points when we like just looked at how the distribution of awards fall, and the tweak to sort of directing allocating operating dollars based on size category is just based on expressed policy objectives of this body of the last few years around awarding about increasing sort of resources for smaller organizations, which have typically been those who have a shorter history of funding from Metro Arts. And so I don't have that data here in these slides, but I'm happy to share what's been shared over the last few months with Grants Committee.
Yeah, that insight is helpful, and I'm also thinking about this from, and this may not be the right forum for it, maybe committee is, but from a change management perspective and like reputational management perspective, ensuring that the voice of those who are being served is incorporated in the change that is about to happen, so that everyone has an opportunity to feel and know and have evidence that, hey, like our voices were heard in the process of whatever the change might be. So that was a little bit too of like the underlying rationale in my question, but what you shared is helpful. Thank you.
And we do have some of the reports that we've gotten from the community engagement meetings where, and a few people who have responded to the survey as well, as we're considering this. But that feedback is always welcome throughout the whole process.
I'm curious about the fiscal sponsor fee structure, and just how is it often that fiscal sponsors are, I guess, saying no to the fee? Like, do you know how, is that something that you find is occurring a lot?
Yeah, I think I can find it in my email note really quick. So of our 75 Thrive projects, 59 used a fiscal sponsor. Of those 59, it was 33 unique fiscal sponsors. So we had 33 organizations serve as a fiscal sponsor. So we know that some organizations supported multiple projects. And of those 59 projects, I believe it's 22 of them had a zero fee, up to, I believe it's 18 projects that had the 10% fee, and then there's a distribution through the middle. And I can follow up with those numbers again. What I have heard from both fiscal sponsors as well as individual applicants, as well as organizations that did not serve as fiscal sponsors, that said, it felt unsupported or inequitable, of kind of saying, the two parties can figure out a fee that works for you, and wanted a little more guidance around that. And so I think a lot of organizations served as a 0% fee because they wanted to help in this moment when we had a very clear need, without knowing how it was going to go. And so the idea of sort of a standard fee, one organization that chose to not serve as a fiscal sponsor compared it to our CALM program, our internship program, which has that built-in fee for, in this case, it's the host site, right? But said, if something was more defined and more set like that, it kind of takes that out of the burden of the two parties to negotiate that. And so, my question is what is the right amount, right? What is a fair amount that organizations feel is fair, that is fair to our budget when we're thinking about allocating our funds, right? And so that's kind of where that comes from.
And would that fee come from the grant money we're giving out, or a separate place in our budget?
So my proposal is to not have it come from the grant. So say you have a $10,000 grant, say you have a $15,000 grant, and the standard fee is $750. The contract would be drawn up for $15,750, so that the artist has the budget that they budgeted for, and that fee doesn't come out of there.
But I mean, does it come out of our total grants pot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that is, my opinion, I think is fair because, for instance, with the organization that I run, a lot of people trust the organization and they come to us and call us. And we've been helping people for years, many years, but we're struggling, and I think a lot of organizations are struggling now with finances and economy. And I think it's fair because we don't have enough support. We lost a lot of grants. We don't have people right now donating or having the time for volunteering to do all the administrative part. We have to pay some people, and especially for the small, medium organizations. And then I think it's fair to have something or give something to those organizations because it's a lot of work. And it's good to know that people trust us, but we don't have the capacity to do all of that. And it's a job to be following that, having accounting people and all of that. So in my opinion, I agree with that and I like that. So everybody will be the same and no questions like why this give more or any of that. And the other thing that I want to mention is just to be clear. So the changes of dual eligibility, I would like to understand better, and because what I understood is like merging the Thrive and Operating grant. If that happened, I think for me, I see it fine because with all the politic environment in the country, the politics and presidential orders, we can avoid to, and I don't know if that is how we're going. We have to change certain vocabularies and ways so everybody can be integrated and everybody can be, we can be fair or Metro Arts can be fair and not having distinctions and get in trouble sometimes, and especially now with all of what is happening in the country and in the city with equity, with diversity, and all of that.
I will say too, I like to your point about the fiscal fee structure as well, thinking about the relationships, which are so important, and then some artists don't have relationships, right? Which we want to try and help facilitate or encourage. But then there could be a power differential, right? Between, like in a negotiation between an artist and an organization when they need that. And so this, like having a flat fee removes that kind of requirement, right, of negotiation, and which I think is positive. Like looking at the community engagement and the kind of comments there and thinking about that, it feels positive. Do you want to speak a little bit more to the dual eligibility, because that is something that I would very much like your feedback on and the community's feedback on as well?
Yeah, so this, it's not to merge them together, but we have the two different grant programs. So Thrive is for project-based funding and Operating is for general operating support. And so, typically you would apply for one or the other. And of course, operating support is only available to art-specific organizations. And so the last couple of years, applications had opened and allowed applicants, if you're a small or a micro organization, to apply for both. That was changed for various reasons at some point during the grant cycle. And so that's been a point of confusion. Both of our appellants mentioned that in the appeals discussion last month as well. And so sort of the other context that is here is that because of how we have changed our funding models in the last couple of years, the Thrive grants have become larger in size, and a lot of all of our operating grants have reduced in size. And so for those small organizations that have access to apply for pretty small organization grants, it's kind of put them in a position to think, well, is the Thrive grant actually better for me to apply to? And am I eligible for it? Like it's kind of confused which one is best for me. And we know that, project grants are are intended and are different than general operating grants. And we know that they're both important in different ways. So sort of the question here, and there's a lot of, but like one of the questions here is, for our smallest organizations, do we want to provide access to apply for both? Or is it you have to pick one or the other? Or, there's a number of ways.
We're talking about kind of, do we want to revert to the previous policy, right? Which was that they can apply for small and micro organizations can apply for both, or keep the current policy, which was new this year, which said that they had to choose. And to me, as you said, they are really different, right? And I want our small and micro organizations to have that operating monies, because that pays salary, right? And that's the hard thing to get. But then also, should they be able to apply for Thrive grants to seed projects or, things? Some of the discussion we had in Grants Committee, which was very good around this, and we did not have a consensus, but talked about just that they're different things, right? And to kind of maintain the integrity of supporting artists through Thrive, right, and organizations through operating, which I totally hear that as well. So this is the main thing that I left our grants meeting kind of wanting to think more about and wanting feedback on. So I'd welcome any kind of discussion around.
I have a question. I'm sorry. For instance, we have Thrive, and we receive applications from artists, individual artists. Maybe I don't understand completely yet, but the question that I've been asked is okay, we're applying, but why is not possible to get the grants directly to me, be paid directly to me? And that is, people ask because they don't know the system, especially new micro organizations or just new artists. And that is the question they ask. Well, I can apply, but why should I have to go through a sponsor? Or why they cannot pay me directly? Those are the questions that I heard.
Yeah, and that was the whole basis, right, for the working group last time and the move towards the fiscal sponsorship, because we were told the way we were doing it, we could no longer do it anymore, like to pay the artist directly through procurement. And so that was the whole idea of the fiscal sponsorship. While that's, I don't know if I would call that a settled question or not, that's something that we've kind of reached. It's kind of like a gravity problem, right? I feel like that we can't. And so we've determined that the fiscal sponsorship is the way that we need to go, at least this year and for the near future. And again, that was based on a lot of work from the working group to kind of think about what that is. So we continue to work with, on the community engagement to kind of explain to the community why the two programs are kind of structured the way they are.
And specifically to answer your question, because I've asked this question too, it's the law. Right now, the law prevents us from giving out grants directly to artists, as I understand it. And so this has been one way to deal with that. And, there can be many questions if that's, the best law, but it's there. And so that's what we have to function with right now.
Thank you. I just wanted to hear from you, and people can watch on, later. Again, just to clarify for everybody, and not just me saying, well, the answer, right? I just wanted to clarify that for the public.
Yeah, just to clarify, I was sitting here thinking, and I got my new card out, so no shame there. What exactly is the role of the fiscal sponsor?
So that's a good question. We provided some templates or kind of suggestions for ways that the agreement could be structured, but it can be varied. So for some people, they have a relationship, right, with an organization, and it could be a very simple, kind of more transactional kind of arrangement where the money comes in through the fiscal agent and the fiscal agent writes the check to the artist and, whatever. There could be other situations, though, where there's more involvement, right? That is something that is supposed to be kind of negotiated, right, between the artist and the fiscal agent. So we have no prescribed role for the fiscal agent. Would you say that's correct? We try and provide support in terms of suggestions for how it could be structured, but it can be a variety of things.
And just to clarify, is the rationale for that, and thank you, Commissioner Knight, for the context around the law, is the rationale for that because the artist does not have a business entity by which they could accept funds? But let's say I'm an artist, Brittany Cole Incorporated or Brittany Cole LLC. If I have an entity, I'm still prohibited from receiving funds directly?
Correct, because the law says that we can award money to nonprofit organizations. See, and not to individuals. And so that is the challenge. So this is a way to get the money through the organization to the artist, hopefully as smoothly as possible, right?
Looks like Tessa was.
No, I'm just happy to answer any law
Yeah.
or legal related questions
Right.
as to why the Department of Law recommended fiscal agents or is prohibiting grants to individuals. So if there's any follow-up questions, and for the newer commissioners, I have provided essentially a legal memorandum on the issue in the past that I can forward to you.
I want to be mindful of the time because I think this conversation is really important, but we've got an important item from the restorative arts team that I want to make sure we don't run out of time for, and I know that folks have a hard stop at 2. I'm available to set up, meetings as early as starting this afternoon through the end of the month when we're working through some of these things. If any commissioners want to talk about these more one-on-one. I just know that we're going to lose quorum in 27 minutes, and we've got a couple other things on the agenda.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's move on. And I'll just say, too, we can't deliberate. So if you all have questions as individual commissioners, if you could reach out to Ashley, and she also can provide, I know, any documents, anything from the Grants Committee meeting. Tessa, you can, if people request the legal background, we can share that as well. And then if there are any community members or other kind of feedback on anything that we have talked about, I'm actively seeking that as a grants chair, so would welcome that. And thank you for this discussion and for the questions.
Yeah, just the last slide here you have printed for you as well, but this is if everything moves on the projected timelines that we have, which is sort of how those dates fall, assuming that we approve guidelines at our next grant committee, and then assuming that at the following council meeting, we get an approval there as well, that means that we would open our applications on, July the 16th. And so this is just the timeline of how we get to funds being distributed by the end of the year, which, like Commissioner said, is the goal here, which is attainable. And yes, that is the plan. So I think that's the last slide for grants here, but wanted to make sure that you are updated on the calendar, the timeline for if people ask you questions of like, when are grants gonna be available again? So we're looking at mid-July for that. So I think that's it for grants.
Okay. Thank you all. I know I'll be watching the grants committee meeting. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I look forward to next month with all of the commissioners. Well, more of the commissioners, hopefully, to have that further discussion. Today, Commissioner Jester is absent, so I will reach back out to Ashley to provide updates on the Audit and Finance Committee.
If we go to the next slide, I'm going to keep this brief, but this is where we are in the budget timeline. We had what I think was a very successful department budget hearing with the council. Thank you to the several commissioners who were able to be there and support. And the public hearing on the budget is June the 3rd. If you go to the next slide, this shows what we have in our budget request. I had originally requested a 25% increase in our grants budget. That was not given to us in the proposed budget as it is. And so in the information that I've since provided to the council then, I point out that a more modest request, if we're looking at a 10% increase in our grants budget, that's what that number is, $326,000. It's a tough budget year for reasons that you can probably all imagine. We know that it's a tough financial situation that many of our grantees are in, as well as they're experiencing changes in the funding worlds that we all exist in right now. And so we are advocating for an increase to our grants budget, and that's what those numbers look like. If you go to the next slide, that's all I have to say about the budget. But again, if you have questions about how you can be involved and support as we move toward the public hearing on June the 3rd and passage of the final budget by the end of the month, please let me know. Happy to provide more details about how that all works. The last thing that I just want to briefly mention is that you have in the information provided today just an update that we sent to the internal audit folks on May the 11th, so last week. I provided you a copy of the updated implementation plan that was submitted to them. I'm not going to go over it today. What's on the slide right here just shows a kind of summary of how we are prioritizing the recommendations that we have agreed with in the audit report. And a lot of that work is going to be shared and co-managed between myself and Capri, who I am, very grateful for all the expertise and experience that she brings in this area. And I wanted her to just, briefly share a few words about how we're approaching this and the relationships that you're building, and so that you all know how in good hands we are in here. So if you want to share.
Well, good afternoon, commissioners and friends. Pleased to provide that brief update for you. I am well underway into my onboarding process as the new finance administrator, and I would like to say that the transition is going very smoothly. I'm quickly getting up to speed with our systems and our processes, and I've either identified or initiated and held the meetings with key stakeholders. I have met with our human resources. I have met with the finance department of Metro as a whole. I have also met with, done grants training and journal entry training. And so I'm well underway with that. I've met with and took human relations training yesterday, which was great. So those things are well underway. Now, the discussions that I'm having with those key stakeholders are crucial to identifying some actionable strategies that are going to enhance the financial controls that we have. And so from what Interim Executive Director Batchelder said, we are well underway with this project plan, and I imagine we will hit the targets that you see before you today. I will say that after coming aboard and reading the document from our audit and the recommendations, the way that I see it is that we have a four-phase consideration. And that's going to be the policies and procedures, making sure that they are outlined, the training and development for our staff and our commissioners, and then some operational accountability, and then the partnerships, utilizing the partnerships of the internal contractual resources that we have. And so, that said, I look forward to contributing to the team's success, and I will provide further updates as these initiatives that we have taken on proceed.
And our next audit committee is June the 11th, and so we'll be, talking a lot more specifically about the things that we've mentioned and you have here. And so, again, I am so grateful for Capri's expertise that she's bringing to that, and we will have updates at the next meeting there. So that's the update from this committee.
Thank you, Ashley and Capri. You all did a really great job at council, so I commend you all for that, for jumping straight into the fire, especially you, Capri, and Ashley, with that being your first budget hearing. So thank you so much for that. Moving on, I will introduce, it looks like Josiah is here ready to speak with us. Claudia, your face is on the screen too, so I will introduce you as well for a restorative arts update. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardin, and good afternoon, commissioners and colleagues. My name is Josiah Golson. I'm the Restorative Arts and Equity Manager, and alongside, as Commissioner Hardin introduced, my colleague Claudia Lawhon, the Restorative Arts and Equity Coordinator. We represent the Restorative Arts team. We are grateful to our interim director, Ashley, for giving us the opportunity to kind of provide an introduction. A lot of our work has been behind the scenes as of late, but we've got one program underway and then are looking forward to reintroducing another program. So briefly, just a little bit about ourselves. Claudia comes to, we've been in these roles for a little over a year now. Claudia brings extensive experience, specifically 3 years in restorative justice work, specifically in Nashville, which is incredibly important to the programming that we're working on. She also has extensive experience in arts administration, grant writing, grant making, and fundraising. The experience that I carry into this experience and into this role is primarily as a practicing artist who's worked for about a decade in programming in various spaces, whether it's schools, museums, other art spaces, and in the public realm, specifically for young people. And half of that experience has been with the juvenile courts in East Tennessee. The next slide is just to provide some updates on the current program that we have going on. Ashley mentioned earlier the internship program known as Community Arts Leaders of Nashville. This is a program that follows a similar template to other programs in major cities and throughout the states that focuses on providing current college students with paid internships with arts organizations of varied sizes and capacities, from small organizations and in certain cases even micro organizations up to large, more established organizations. That provides the student with paid work, valuable experience. They also receive a mentor who works in the Nashville arts ecosystem in some capacity. And this, of course, supports the capacity of the arts organizations and strengthens the ecosystem in general for helping to retain talent, nurture talent, and connect artists and arts workers. Currently we have 8 students working at 8 various host sites who each have been also paired with a mentor. These internships will conclude in June within the end of the fiscal year. And our most recent event, a photo of which shows most of the students were able to make this luncheon at the Creativity Bar, this run by local artist and poet Stephanie Pruitt-Gaines and her partner Al Gaines. So that was a really wonderful opportunity that provided an invitation for the students, their supervisors at the host sites, and mentors to kind of share space at a really wonderful facility and be able to talk about what they've been doing, connect, network, and the like. We'll also be following up before the end of the program with some professional development training for the students, where they'll be able to learn from local arts leaders and get skills on interviewing, portfolio development, and also thinking about next steps after their internship, how to stay rooted in the ecosystem. We're currently working on the framework and guidelines for the next round of community arts leaders that will take place in FY26. And so we look forward to presenting that to you in the next meeting or so, when that will become an action item for your consideration and ultimate vote. The next thing that we want to give you a heads up on is what's currently been called the arts programming for court-involved youth. That's where the restorative in restorative arts really comes into play. This is arts integrated intervention for court-involved or system-impacted young people. The focus is on positive development, restoration, and resiliency. And this program technically launched in FY 18 in collaboration with Judge Calloway and the Davidson Juvenile Justice Court. This, the last round of this programming was in fiscal year 24, and so it wrapped. That was operated through what's been called re-verification. So there were 4 to 5 organizations, arts organizations, that provided this programming in the Juvenile Justice Court, in certain schools in the local system, and in certain cases offsite at community centers. And so they were able to reapply and basically get grants to continue this programming. Now what we're working on is to try to relaunch the program and have an open call for eligible organizations to apply. And so we'll be soon presenting you with the framework, the plans we have for centering restorative justice, and plans for being able to get the best data possible so that we can move forward with that program in a positive light. And yeah, we look forward to presenting you those guidelines and proposals in the coming months. And with that being said, please don't hesitate to reach out to Claudia and me if you have any questions. We look forward to reconnecting with the commissioners we know, and meeting and being able to develop relationships with those of you who we have yet to sit down with. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Thank you so much for this. It's so good to see you both and to hear about all this work. And I wanted to know about the, you may have said this and I just missed it, but the CALM program has wrapped up, right, for the spring semester. Will it, or what's going on? Yeah, what's the calendar for that?
It wraps up. We have internships that will be, all of the internships will be concluded by the end of June. Yes.
And will there be a restart in when will the next application cycle for that open?
We are working on that right now. We expect at the earliest applications to open this summer for what will be the next round.
So is it kind of on a semester system?
Ideally, it works on the semester system.
great.
Over this past fiscal year, we were only able to do the spring round. So we're wanting to make sure whether we do both fall and spring for FY26 or just one semester, either way, we want to go in the direction that sets up the students, host sites, and everyone involved for the best possible experience.
Great. Thank you so much. I love that
Absolutely.
program.
Thank you very much, Josiah. It is very good to see you. I guess I will invite Chuck Beard up to give us a community engagement update.
Thank you for the invite. That's the first time I've ever heard it called calm, and it seems closer to calm instead of count. It's very harsh, so thank you for that. Yeah. We only have a few minutes left, so I'll just go through a few things. And as usual, I'm inviting you to different events and things that we're throwing out there. And as Ashley mentioned, with the grants being pushed a couple weeks from the itinerary or the perspective calendar we had last month, we're pivoting to what the needs of the community are with alignment with what we're doing as staff with public art. There's a lot of things going on, and grants as well, and restorative arts. So the next few things coming up, 2 coffee talks next month, since we're pushing the applications for grants later, and also because community members and groups are inviting us to kind of co-host with them. This one is, as you can see, June 4th, and it's a couple days before. I don't know if you've been over there to the Capitol View Mural Park or whatever. It's pretty fascinating the last couple of years what's going on over there at the Frankie Pierce Park. And Anthony Billups, who's kind of the lead on Music City Murals, he's going to be there that day to kind of give a tour of everything that's gone on in the last 6 years, I think, 6 years. And then it's a few days before, there's a big wall that's going to be, for the first time, all female local mural artists that are going to be doing an event over there. So they've kind of got their sections off. So maybe some of them will be there a couple days before to talk about that and how people can be engaged. And you can even paint with some of them under their instruction and collaborate with them. So that's a fascinating opportunity. And then after we celebrate Juneteenth, we'll be back that following week at the 37208 community building with talking with some people that are staff with Urban Housing Solutions, and have a local coffee pop-up, and just a good reminder that that building is there for us in the city to use and collaborate with others. Looking forward to both of those. And then next week, the next episode for Metro Art Forging Ahead will be live taped at NECAT. So you can find all the past episodes so far on the NECAT Network YouTube channel. And we continue to carry that conversation with different local artists. So just wanted to share that and put it on your radar. Thank you.
And now I will hand it over to Ashley again to give her interim executive director report.
Y'all are hearing a lot from me, but this is the last one. So I just have a few things to share that were not included in other committee reports. So first, I wanted to share updates on staffing and hiring. And so we have our team member, Jesse Ross, in the back, who is one of our public art coordinators, who is going to be leaving us in the next couple of months. Jesse's been with Metro Arts for a couple of years as a public art coordinator, has really done a lot on the Strobel House project that we have right now. We are sad that he's leaving us for another opportunity, but excited about the next steps for him. And so it's your last chance to say anything at a commission meeting if you want to, or we'll just stare at you. And so, want to thank you for everything you've done with Metro Arts and Metro in general. And I'm working with the public art team and Jesse, of course, just on transition plans and making sure that all the work that he has started continues. And, so that is an update there. Come to the coffee talks. So other hiring updates, We are moving on our public information manager position. I am scheduling interviews for the first few days in June, and so my goal has been to have that person identified and hopefully started by the end of June, but at least identified by the end of June. And so we've got a good candidate pool, and I'm excited about getting to the human-to-human interview part of the phase. We've moved through the written portions of the interview process, and so that is moving forward. And then after that, we will be taking up with, some greater prioritization right now, the public art manager, especially in light of Jesse's transition as one of our public art coordinators. So that's the hiring update where we stand. And you probably noticed for yourself, there's 6 of you commissioners here today. We had the legislation passed through the Metro Council on Tuesday of this week that formally changes our commission size from 15 to 11 members. And so that is why our quorum is now at 6. And so that the 11 commission members that we have right now, we are a fully staffed or a fully filled commission. And so 11 is our formal number moving forward, legislation signed and into effect. Those were just the updates that I had here. We've got last few minutes if you have any questions for me, but that is what and so the follow-up that I will do after this meeting, I will compile the grants information that we've shared with the committee and make sure that all commissioners have that in your email by tomorrow, if not today. And if there is other information that you would like to receive from me in between meetings or at meetings, please always let me know. As you know, I tend to send an informational update in between meetings, but if there's other types of information you would be preferring to hear about or different types of updates, please give me that feedback, requests, critiques at any time. That's all I got.
Thank you. At this time, I guess we will open it up for any new business. If any commissioners have new business to bring up at this time, please do so. All right, hearing nothing, I will advance and I will move to adjourn today's meeting. And
Second.
And we don't need to vote, right? No. Today's meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.